work together on one field, Shedeur had his own field and his own teams to work with yesterday, and Stefanski and Barry were over there watching him, and he balled out. More on that in a minute. Tomorrow, you'll see they'll get back to action 11:20 with the interviews. We'll hear from Mike Bloomgren and Chad O'Shea and Brandon Lynch and some players. Kevin Stefanski will talk at 1:30, and I'm sure that's when everybody's going to be gathered around to find out, hey, Coach, did you change the pecking order of the quarterbacks? Did you change the reps? That's what everybody will be interested in tomorrow. I don't think we're going to hear anything tonight. They're not going to let any of this leak. They're just going to stay tight-lipped, and then we'll just have to find out when we find out tomorrow. Shoot, it might not be till 2 o'clock when they get out there and start practicing.
The Cleveland Browns coaches just held their most secretive meeting of training camp, and what they witnessed from Shedeur Sanders has completely changed everything. While everyone was focused on the veteran quarterbacks, Sanders was out there, on his own field, absolutely destroying the competition with an 8-4-11 performance and 3 touchdowns that had coaches Barry and Stefanski watching in stunned silence. But here's what nobody is talking about. This wasn't just another practice. This was the day that quietly shifted the entire quarterback hierarchy, and the ripple effects of what happened behind closed doors could shake up the entire NFL draft narrative forever. Look, I'm going to be straight with you guys. What went down at Cleveland Browns training camp this past week wasn't just another routine practice session. According to Dave Grinjinski from Browns Latest, we witnessed something that nobody saw coming, and it's got the entire coaching staff scrambling behind closed doors, while Joe Flacco was struggling through a rough 4-for-11 day with the first team, and Kenny Pickett was trying to prove he's worth more than his career 13 touchdowns to 13 interceptions ratio. Shedeur Sanders was quietly putting on an absolute clinic. And here's the kicker. He wasn't even working with the starters. But let me tell you what really happened, because the mainstream media is completely missing the story here. According to recent reports from Cleveland.com insider Ashley Bastock, Sanders has been closing the gap between him and Dylan Gabriel, and the quality of reps he's been getting against the twos has been some of the most impressive quarterback play they've seen all camp. Now, I know what you're thinking, but he's not getting first-team reps. And you're right, but here's why that doesn't matter, and why it might actually be the smartest thing the Browns have ever done. Think about it like this. When Ohio State plays Akron, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to tear them apart. That's exactly what Shedeur is doing to the second and third string defenses. The truth behind those quarterback tracker numbers tells a completely different story than what the depth chart shows. Day 3, Shedeur went 5-4-8 while Flacco struggled to a 4-4-11 performance. But Friday was when everything changed. Sanders went 8-4-11 with 3 touchdowns, looking absolutely smooth in everything he was doing. And here's what's really wild. According to the latest reporting from Browns Nation, Sanders was reportedly the most accurate among all quarterbacks during the earlier stages of their offseason preparation. We're talking about a guy who's not just beating the players in front of him statistically, he's completely embarrassing them. But let's talk about what happened behind the scenes, because this is where the story gets really interesting. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry made a special trip over to watch Shedeur work on his separate field. They stood there, arms crossed, watching this 5th-round pick tear apart everything in front of him. And according to Grinjinski, he bowled out. That's not just good performance. That's statement-making, attention-grabbing, impossible to ignore football.
In this case, and that's what he's doing. He's tearing them up. So there's nothing. This is the truth behind the tracker, folks. You can't get upset if Shedeur is running with the 2s and the 3s. If he goes out there and rips them a new one every single practice, that's exactly what you need to see. That's it. That's how you move up. That's how you move up the pecking order. It's just like any job, right? They give you some work. They see if you can handle it. If you can handle it, you move up to the next level. It's as simple as that. That's the truth behind the tracker. You can look at the numbers and just take that away. Don't get all upset because he's with the 2s and the 3s. 1, be happy that he's out there competing, and 2, that he's out there tearing it up. That's all you want to see. They will have no choice.
The coaches saw something that day that changed everything. While Kenny Pickett was getting his usual veteran reps, trying to prove he's more than a reclamation project, Sanders was out there playing like he belonged in a completely different conversation. And that's when the secret meeting happened. See, What people don't understand is that the Browns never expected Shedeur to be available in the 5th round. Never in their wildest dreams. Barry had his draft board. They had their plan: take Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round. Maybe grab a developmental guy later. But when Sanders fell to the 5th round, Barry couldn't pass up that value. As Grinjinski explains, Barry never passes up value. But here's where it gets really interesting. According to recent reports from CBS Sports, there's a growing belief that Sanders, despite being a 5th-round pick, is quietly becoming one of the most intriguing storylines of this entire quarterback competition. And that belief isn't coming from nowhere. It's coming from what coaches are seeing on the field every single day. Now let's break down what's really happening here. The Browns brought in Gabriel as their planned future starter. They traded for Pickett as a reclamation project. They brought back Flacco as the safe veteran option. But none of them expected Sanders to walk in and immediately start outperforming everyone when given the opportunity. And that's the key phrase: when given the opportunity. Every time Sanders steps on that field, he's taking advantage. He's not complaining about rep distribution. He's not making excuses about working with the second team. According to Yahoo Sports reporting from just 2 days ago, Sanders himself said, "It's not in my control," when asked about first-team reps. But here's what is in his control: absolutely destroying whatever defense is put in front of him. The mobility, the accuracy, the decision-making, the pocket presence. Everything scouts raved about when they drafted him is showing up in these practices. While Gabriel is getting passes batted down even now, according to the training camp reports, Sanders is making throws that have coaches doing double takes. But let's talk about that secret coaching meeting, because this is where the real drama unfolds. Sunday, no practice, but according to Grinjinski, this might have been the most important day of training camp so far. Why? Because the coaches got together to assess what they'd been witnessing. Stefanski, Barry, and the entire coaching staff sat in that room, probably with Sanders' tape rolling on the projector, trying to figure out how a 5th-round pick was consistently outperforming players they'd invested significantly more draft capital in. They watched him work with the 2s and 3s and absolutely tear them apart. They saw the 3-touchdown performance. They saw the 8-4-11 accuracy. They saw a guy who wasn't just meeting expectations, he was completely shattering them. And here's what nobody's talking about. This creates a massive problem for the Browns' original plan. They thought they had their quarterback room figured out. Flacco as the veteran, Pickett as the reclamation project, Gabriel as the future, and Sanders as the developmental guy who might contribute in a few years. But what happens when the developmental guy starts developing faster than anyone expected? What happens when he's not just holding his own, but actually outplaying guys who are supposed to be ahead of him? According to the latest insider information from Cleveland.com, the gap between Sanders and Gabriel is closing fast. Really, I feel like the last 2 days in particular, it's felt even closer between him and Dillon Gabriel in terms of the reps they're getting, reports Ashley Bastock. That's not just progress, that's rapid ascension up a depth chart that was supposed to be set in stone. The Browns shocked people when they took Gabriel in the 3rd round. Most people didn't have him on their radar that high. But taking Sanders just 2 rounds later, that was seen as a luxury pick, a guy they could develop slowly. Except Sanders isn't developing slowly. He's developing at warp speed, and it's creating chaos in the best possible way. Think about this from the coaching staff's perspective. You've got Joe Flacco, who's 39 years old and clearly not your long-term answer. You've got Kenny Pickett, who's never thrown more touchdowns than interceptions in a season and is playing for his NFL career. You've got Dillon Gabriel, who's getting passes batted down in practice. And then you've got this 5th-round rookie, who's quietly putting together the most consistent performances of the entire group. What do you do with that information? How do you handle a situation where your lowest draft pick might actually be your highest ceiling player? That's exactly what that Sunday meeting was about. The coaches weren't just assessing quarterbacks, they were potentially reshuffling their entire approach to this competition. Because here's the thing about Shedeur Sanders that makes him different from every other quarterback in that room. He's got that it factor that you can't teach. The arm talent was always there. The accuracy was always there. The football IQ was always there. But what's showing up in practice is that intangible quality that separates good quarterbacks from great ones. The ability to make plays when everything breaks down. the pocket presence to step up and deliver strikes under pressure, the leadership to command a huddle even when you're working with the second team. And according to recent reports, Sanders isn't just accepting his underdog role, he's thriving in it. CBS Sports reported just 2 days ago that despite his limited first-team reps, Sanders is up to the challenge as the quarterback competition heats up. But here's what's really interesting about this whole situation. The Browns might have accidentally stumbled into something special. They went into this draft thinking they needed to find their quarterback of the future. They took Gabriel in the 3rd round, thinking he was that guy. But then Sanders fell to them in the 5th, and now they're looking at a situation where their backup plan might actually be their best plan. The numbers don't lie. While other quarterbacks are struggling with consistency, Sanders is putting up video game statistics against whatever defense they put in front of him. 8 completions out of 11 attempts with 3 touchdowns isn't just good, it's elite level production, and that's not even counting the intangibles. According to everyone who's watched these practices, Sanders just looks different out there. He looks comfortable. He looks confident. He looks like he belongs. While other rookies are pressing and trying to do too much, Sanders is just playing football at an extremely high level. The coaching staff sees this. They see a guy who's not intimidated by the moment, who's not overwhelmed by the competition, who's just going out there and executing at a level that's impossible to ignore. And that's what that Sunday meeting was really about, figuring out how to handle a situation that nobody saw coming. But here's where this story gets even more interesting. According to insider reports, the Browns are now in a position where they might have to completely rethink their quarterback timeline. Gabriel was supposed to be the future. Sanders was supposed to be the project. But what happens when the project is outplaying the future? This is the kind of situation that can completely change the trajectory of a franchise. We've seen it before. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick who outplayed everyone ahead of him. Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick who took over when he got his chance. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick who immediately showed he was better than the veterans in front of him. Sanders is following that same blueprint. He's not making excuses. He's not complaining about rep distribution. He's just going out there and making it impossible for coaches to ignore him. And based on what happened in that Sunday meeting, it sounds like they're not ignoring him anymore. The question now becomes, what happens next? Do they give Sanders first-team reps to see how he performs against the starters? Do they accelerate his timeline and start preparing him for immediate competition? Or do they stick with their original plan and hope that Gabriel starts playing up to his draft position? According to the latest reporting, we might get our answer this week. The coaches had their meeting. They assessed the situation. They saw what Sanders has been doing against the 2s and 3s. Now comes the real test. Are they ready to see what he can do against the 1s? But here's what's really crazy about this whole situation. Sanders might not even need first-team reps to prove his point. He's already making it impossible to ignore him by dominating at every level he's been given. And that's exactly the kind of mentality that translates to success at the next level. The Browns thought they were getting a developmental quarterback in the 5th round. Instead, they might have found their franchise quarterback. And that Sunday meeting, that wasn't just about assessing quarterbacks. That was about potentially changing the entire direction of this franchise. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Shedeur Sanders isn't just competing for a roster spot anymore. He's competing for the starting job. And based on what he's been showing in practice, he might actually win it. The coaches see it. The scouts see it. The other players see it. The only question is whether the Browns front office is ready to admit that their 5th-round steal might actually be their 1st-round talent. That secret meeting was just the beginning. What comes next could change everything. And if Sanders keeps performing like this, we might be looking at one of the biggest quarterback surprises in recent NFL history. The competition is heating up, the stakes are getting higher, and Shedeur Sanders is right in the middle of it all, quietly building his case one devastating practice performance at a time. So what do you think? Is Sanders really ready to challenge for the starting job? Or is this just training camp hype? Are the Browns about to make the biggest quarterback decision in franchise history? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe because this quarterback battle is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Subscribe now for more exclusive Browns coverage and hit that notification bell, because when Shedeur Sanders finally gets his shot with the first team, you'll want to be the first to know about it.